I'm Billy S, welcome back to the channel. Today we're ranking the bosses of the Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds. Are you curious about my thoughts on the dungeons of this game? Check my last video out by clicking the card in the top right corner. A Link Between Worlds is, let's face it, an easy game. You can very quickly get overpowered, and none of the boss fights are terribly complex, as we expect from top-down Zelda. But where this game really shines is how each boss feels themed for the area they're encountered in, and while many of them take inspiration from their SNES counterparts, they almost always feel more fleshed out. Now keep in mind this is a ranking based on the normal difficulty for the game. I haven't replayed it on hero mode, but I do understand that many of the bosses would gain a lot of depth, as you can't afford to be as reckless with your offensive strategies. So, let's jump right in. All 12 bosses in The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds, ranked. Let me know your thoughts down below. At number 12, we have Yuga, boss of the Eastern Palace. Yuga is the main antagonist of A Link Between Worlds, and his journey into Hyrule sees him collecting the descendants of the 7 sages and turning them into paintings. We first meet him at the Sanctuary, but it's not until the Eastern Palace that we actually get to fight him, and he's one of the easiest bosses I have ever faced. Don't believe me? He doesn't attack once in my footage, because all you have to do is follow him as he merges with the wall of the arena and fire arrows at him when he pops back out. All it takes is 10 hits to send us into the post-battle cutscene, and I managed that with extreme ease. What else do you want me to talk about? I never saw his attacks. I've got no clue what Yuga can do here. If anything, Nintendo went way too easy with his AI, leading to an uninspired, uninteresting, and dare I say, bland boss fight. It's a good thing we can fight him again at Hyrule Castle, where he has an actual moveset. At number 11, we have Moldorm, boss of the Tower of Hera. A one-to-one recreation of the SNES fight of the same name, Moldorm is a giant towering worm that scuttles around the platform at the top of the dungeon. Your goal is to bounce up to its grating and attack its glowing tail while it rushes around the boss arena. It takes 7 hits with your sword to defeat this boss, with the Moldorm glowing a darker red hue every couple of strikes. This is actually a much easier experience than the other games in the series, as this Moldorm doesn't regain its health if it knocks you off of the arena. You just fall onto the rooftop below with the various bladers and can hop back up to where you left off. On the one hand, cool, that mechanic was a nightmare in A Link to the Past. On the other hand, A Link Between Worlds is so much easier to control that I never felt in danger of falling off the arena, and thus I wonder if they could have gotten away with regenerating his health bar. I also heavily dislike the modern Moldorm aesthetic. He looks like a fucking Big Mac with the burger bun textures and the leafy green lettuce around the edges. I bet he's filled with tomato as well. I much prefer the jet black portrayals of the SNES and Game Boy Link's Awakening variants. Not a bad fight, but nothing was really changed to make it feel better than its SNES counterpart, and that's also my main problem with our next entry. At number 10, we have Argus, boss of the Swamp Palace. Another fight that takes heavy inspiration from its SNES counterpart. I can't help but feel disappointed with Argus because his battle here is so close to being fantastic, but it's just missing a little bit of challenge in the first half that keeps it from greatness. Argus spawns with a host of smaller eyes that you need to hookshot away from the main body, allowing you to destroy them one by one. In the SNES, Argus would often use an attack that had the eyes rotate around the body, similar to Patra from the original Legend of Zelda. In that game, the boss arena was large enough though that the move wasn't very dangerous. Had they brought that move back here for A Link Between Worlds, I think it would have given this Phase 1 the danger it needed due to the smaller arena. Instead, his main attack is to have one of his eyes summon a slow-moving fireball that you can simply walk to the side of. They put all the development time into Argus's second phase instead, as while he still jumps around the room attempting to crush the player, he also now has a new laser attack. It'll follow Link around, striking the water beneath him and causing massive geysers to erupt moments later. so you have to keep moving, which is a nice, albeit frantic, change of pace. I feel like they wanted Argus to feel threatening, which is why it returns later on as a mini-boss in Lorule Castle, but the first phase here just feels so underbaked, and it makes half the fight feel like a chore as opposed to an actual challenge. At number 9, we have Grinnex, the boss of Turtle Rock. We're now at the point where none of the bosses are uninspired or bad, with personal preference really shining through here. And Grinnex lands this low on the list because, honestly, I don't care for the design. It's based off of Trinnex from the SNES, but doesn't have the cool red and blue elemental heads to stand out. It's an evil brown snapping turtle, which while turtly fitting the dungeon's theme, just like that pun I made, it doesn't spark much joy in me. As a fight though, Grinnex is cool. Phase 1 sees you needing to use your ice rod to hit the boss any time it swims beneath one of the 5 holes in the arena. You have to keep track of the boss as well as the lava pillars that spurt up while you're moving, and every now and then it'll release a giant volcanic flame vent from its shell that will chase you around. I believe if you can hit the boss with an ice rod attack, it cancels this move out, but I'm not 100% certain. Phase 2 then sees it bounce up into the arena where it shows off its unique strategy of spin to win. Grinnex can curl into its shell and begin sliding around the arena, providing a genuinely tough move to dodge. It can also trigger a big explosion instead of spinning, which you have to watch out for, and its main attack is its snapping head, where it'll launch its neck to snap at Link. You can actually stun the boss here by freezing a lava pillar and having Grinnex try to eat it with the snap, but I found it easier to just take pot shots at the head after his attacks, come what may. A solid fight, I can definitely see an argument for a higher placement, so let me know down below if I just hate lava turtles. At number 8, we have Yuga, the boss of Hyrule Castle. Following our collection of the Master Sword, we climb through the castle to face Yuga down and bring peace to Hyrule. And here, he clearly remembered how much I whooped his ass because he purposefully chose a room with more obstacles between him and I. It's the Soulsborne strategy. Pillars, pillars, and more pillars. Not only that, but like any good mage fight, he learned how to clone himself so it'd take me an extra 10 seconds to beat him instead. I actually like the way the clones work here. All 3 of them move to different parts of the arena, and you have to figure out which is the real Yuga. Attack a fake, and the clone becomes a soldier, while the real Yuga and the other clone use an attack. Either a forwards lightning strike, which you shouldn't have any issues with, or a fire attack that travels along the walls, forcing you to stay in the center of the arena to avoid damage. The real Yuga has purple energy emanating from his staff, so even if you can't capitalize on it in that current cycle, just knowing where the real Yuga was is half the battle. Once you've locked onto the real one, you just have to follow him along the wall and attack when he pops out. After enraging, he can also use his clones to summon more soldiers into the room, which you have to fight before the battle can continue, but ultimately, you will come out on top. It's a fun fight. I like that because Yuga isn't a strong fighter, he has to hide away and use range attacks or other enemies to do his dirty work. It makes a lot of sense as to why he ultimately wants the Triforce of Power, as it would allow him to cover for that weakness. At number 7, we have Darkstare, the boss of the Ice Ruins. Based on the Cold Stare boss from A Link to the Past, Darkstare is, at least in my opinion, a more dangerous battle with some mechanics I found pretty cool. The main fight takes place on a hexagonal icy arena with a smaller hexagonal hole in the center, meaning ice physics for the entire fight. Which is fair enough, it's an ice dungeon, I'm not gonna knock points when you have more than enough space to move around. Darkstare begins by encasing itself in a large chunk of ice, which you'll need to melt off using the fire rod if you want to damage it. Then it surrounds itself with 3 glowing orbs that it uses to attack. They fly towards 3 parts of the arena, creating a triangular pattern around Link, and if he's within the pattern when the attack launches, he'll be frozen in place. I really love just how unique this attack pattern is, and how it promotes you slipping away for your life while trying to avoid the icy triangle. The boss can also launch larger orbs at Link, but they don't move nearly as far along the arena, so you can easily space them out. Melt the boss from its ice and attack it as it flops around to do damage, rinsing and repeating until you claim victory. I do like that in the second half, the boss fires way more orbs, creating multiple triangle attacks you have to avoid. It really gives the illusion of a higher difficulty, even if the way you handle the attacks remains exactly the same: run in a direction and pray. My only critique: I'd have loved to see some icicles falling from the ceiling to give you something a little extra to avoid, but now I'm just becoming a bit of a sadist. At number 6, we have the Gemmasaur King, the boss of the Dark Palace. In order to begin the fight, Link has to light the 2 lanterns on either corner of the boss arena. This causes the Gemmasaur King to drop down, starting the battle. In order to damage the boss, you have to destroy its mask, a move reminiscent of the Helmasaur King from the SNES, but instead of the hammer, you get to chuck bombs at the boss's face and watch the sparks fly. Or should I say, watch the rupees fly. There is something very satisfying about bombing this creature only to see money pouring out of it, and it makes what would be a boring bit of first phase preamble feel genuinely entertaining. Once the mask shatters, the Gemmasaur King begins whirling the spiked tail and gains the ability to fire crystal shards from his mouth. So stay out of the face, avoid the tail swipes as it rumbles around the room, and beware, as sometimes the boss will give off a massive roar that darkens the boss arena, allowing it to go into a frenzy, rampaging around the room as you merge into the wall to avoid its charge. You have to relight a lantern in order to stun the boss, allowing you to attack the weak point on its face. The challenge here comes from the random nature of the boss's movement patterns, which can cause a lot of contact damage that adds up as the fight progresses, plus your own ability to reach the lanterns in the dark without getting crushed. I appreciate a boss that is able to use the game's central gimmick, the merge mechanic, as well as its own dungeon's central gimmick, the darkness, to create a fun fight, and Gemmasaur King, good job, you did both. At number 5, we have Yuga Ganon, the boss of Lorule Castle. Upon rescuing the 7 sages and claiming the Triforce of Courage, we return to Lorule to rescue Princess Zelda, only to discover that the monarch of Lorule, Hilda, orchestrated the events of the game. She wished to use the power of Hyrule's Triforce to rebuild Lorule, only Yuga pretended to be on board with her plan, hijacking it at the last second and stealing the Triforce of Wisdom for himself. Now it's up to Link with a new bow, courtesy of Princess Zelda, to stop Yuga Ganon and save both kingdoms from the brink of disaster. The first phase of the fight is your standard top-down Ganon encounter, which takes place before Yuga's betrayal of Hilda, and you've got all the classic moves, trident thrusts and swipes alongside some cool charged attacks, throwing the trident mid-fight, forcing the player to dodge it like a boomerang, and there's even a new magic attack where Yuga vanishes before launching a series of projectiles that blow up where Link is standing. It's your standard fare, in all honesty, and this fight was done far better in Echoes of Wisdom. But Yuga Ganon's second form, following his possession of the Triforce of Wisdom, adds enough to the fight to place it just in my top 5. Now it does start with Dead Man's Volley, the energy tennis gimmick where you bat attacks between each other until someone misses, and while I wish the Zelda series would find a more interesting mechanic to rip off every game, it's at least done well here. When you stun Yuga, he'll retreat to the walls, forcing you to follow him with your bow of light. Here you have to shoot him while merged, forcing him out of the wall and allowing you to attack. Afterwards, he'll begin causing wall blasts around the arena that summon fiery keys to attack you, and I didn't realize you could avoid this by merging back into the walls, so hey ho, I tanked the hits with my fancy red mail. Then you rinse and repeat the process until the final arrow of light is shot, where instead of firing forwards at Yuga, who will just block the arrow, you have to instead fire behind you so the arrow circles around the entire arena to hit Yuga's behind. It's a satisfying conclusion, but it highlights that the merge mechanic really wasn't made with combat in mind. It's why this fight can't rank higher, because while the story surrounding it is honestly fantastic, the actual gameplay is built around concepts we've seen done before and done better in both the past and the future. Though I will say, Yuga Ganon's design is pretty scary. At number 4, we have Stalblind, boss of the Thieves' Hideout. In A Link to the Past, this dungeon's boss was Blind, a white-robed monster who took the form of an innocent maiden that Link had to rescue. Here, we also have to rescue a young thief girl from the depths of the dungeon, and of course we're all assuming, oh, she's the boss, that's actually Stalblind, but our expectations are subverted when it's revealed, no, she's not. Stalblind is instead this gargantuan demonic spirit who wields a large sword and a gigantic shield. In order to damage the boss, you have to smack him in the back, but he's always facing you. His sword swings and shadow breath are a danger to be sure, but if you merge into his shield, he'll become confused, swinging the shield behind him and allowing you to emerge unscathed. It turns into a stealth mission of sorts, and this works for a few rounds until Stalblind grows wary of your tricks and throws away his shield. His second half involves him charging up a massive Beyblade spin attack that, as long as you outrun, will leave him breathless and able to be struck down. Beyond that, it's a case of dodging his faster sword stabs and slashes while continuing to strike him at every opportunity. His last trick comes in the form of separating his head, allowing it to roam around the arena, spitting toxic fumes in a wide circle. You just have to keep attacking while dodging this extra danger to come out on top. Not a terribly complex fight, but one that really improved upon Blind the Thief from the SNES by not making the fight a bullet hell spam of lasers. Plus, when I think about this game's merge mechanic, merging into Stalblind's shield is actually the first thing that comes to mind. It has a serious level of memorability, and that gives it a lot of brownie points. Plus, it's also most people's first boss in low rule, since Thieves' Town is right next door to the blacksmith where you first awaken, which means we all end up having fresh memories of Stalblind. Not my top 3, as I really just like the concepts of my podium finishers, but 4th place ain't too shabby. At number 3, we have Knucklemaster, the boss of Skull Woods. Immediately, this boss is in a much better position than its counterpart from the SNES, as Mothula was one of the worst designed fights in that game. Knucklemaster, despite being a completely different creature and design, manages to feel more at home in Skull Woods due to the use of War Masters in the dungeon, and that theming goes a long way. But honestly, hot take, Knucklemaster was the hardest fight I experienced in A Link Between Worlds, because his mechanics are a perfect storm for catching players like myself off guard. His main gimmick is that his boss arena is filled with fragile flooring. If Knucklemaster uses his slam attack on those tiles, they create bottomless pits that remain for the rest of the fight. Effectively, you have to be very aware of the arena and try to finish the battle quickly, as the longer it lasts, the more painful the arena becomes. To beat him, you need to dodge his charge attack by either tornado rodding or merging into the wall. This causes the Knucklemaster to slam against it and stun itself, allowing you to do damage. Why I was constantly caught off guard was that he gains more slams as the fight goes on, leading to me falling into multiple pits and failing to capitalize on a lot of the times I stunned him. But I feel this was bad gameplay on my part and not a problem with the boss itself. In fact, I love that this boss really tried to challenge me and force me to take stock of the situation. I couldn't brute force this fight, and I had to manage my energy meter effectively so I could continue to merge. It led to a fairly tense finish where I wasn't sure if I would be able to beat him first try. Given there's only so much you can do with an enemy type like this, I just think what they managed with Knucklemaster was insanely impressive, and it's also the last boss on today's list to even use the merge mechanic, so hey, that counts for something. At number 2, we have Margomill, boss of the House of Gales. It's no surprise that my top 3 are all comprised of entirely new boss types, but Margomill truly is a standout design-wise when it comes to A Link Between Worlds. It's this giant disc-like creature that rides atop a mechanical circular gearbox. It can fire out wind blasts to blow Link backwards, and spins around the arena trying to either do contact damage or knock Link into the pits on the side. You have to use the tornado rod to blast your way up to the giant eye at its center, striking it down to progress the fight. It'll rebuild itself with 2 new layers beneath it that you have to attack to remove. Either your sword or one of Ravio's weapons help in this endeavor, but I found it surprisingly tricky regardless. Sometimes Margomill would be just out of range when I start swinging my sword, or I'd mistime its movements and get contact damaged. I genuinely thought I might die here because Margomill asks so much of the player for a dungeon you can enter with minimum 4 hearts. And the final phase, where it builds 4 new layers beneath itself, is the cherry on top. The game doesn't give you an easy excuse, you have to get good, predict its faster movements, and knock all those supporting layers away so you can tornado rod to the top and claim your victory. This boss was so interesting that it got brought back in a slightly different format in Triforce Heroes, and it stands out as being the only boss in this game to have both an organic and a mechanical component to its design. I want to know more about Margomill. What is this creature? Something we'll sadly never discover. At number 1, we have Zaganaga, boss of the Desert Palace, and my favourite fight in the game. Is it because Zaganaga manages to nail the pure spectacle of it all? Maybe. But I think given the constraints of the Sand Wand as the dungeon item, it was used to great effectiveness here. See, Zaganaga resides in Lorule, but the boss arena is entirely walled off from Misery Mire. There's just no way to break in, which means you have to instead enter from Hyrule's side. Taking on the Desert Palace, you reach the boss room only to find yourself outside and faced with a fissure in the wall. Yep, you take that fissure back into Lorule to reveal the entire temple structure in Misery Mire is just one giant boss arena. Zaganaga is this giant flower that burrows around to the different platforms of the sand pit, forcing you to chase after it by using the sand wand and the platforms. Now, it won't attack much in phase 1, preferring to spawn P-hats to try and knock you into the sand, so this is all about chasing the boss down and mastering your usage of the sand wand until its petals start to bloom. Here, the boss becomes far more aggressive, will begin launching a massive sand beam at Link from its resting spot. This is an attack that lasts far longer than you might expect, leading to a lot of tricky situations. Combine this with a shockingly high health pool, and you've got a boss that takes a lot of hits to take down, alongside a hard-hitting sand attack and the P-hat enemies flocking around you. Zaganaga is a real battle of attrition, and is a fight I can totally see being a nightmare on hero mode if you go here without the upgraded Master Sword. But ultimately, it helped the boss to leave a fantastic impression by having it stay alive for so long. Dedicating such a vast amount of overworld real estate to a boss fight will always feel like the boss is serving at the highest possible level, and that's just a fact. Zaganaga, you are my favourite boss of A Link Between Worlds. Congratulations, my dear. And that's my list. Which boss is your favourite from this game? Let me know down below, and be sure to parry that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all my future videos. You can see my social medias on screen now. You can follow me over on Blue Sky or on Twitch. It's your call which one you prefer. I want to give a shout out to my YouTube channel members as well for supporting me for another month. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. It's $4.99. Gets you a shout out in the description at the end of videos as well, and sometimes you get some super special Let's Plays as well. So thanks for watching, I'll see you guys next time, adios.